Welcome to Spooky Southern Storytime. I've got a really good story for you guys today. It's Monday, so let's get started with something really fun that happened to me in this apartment. Okay, so I've lived here for about 20 years. Yes, I know, it's a very long time to live in a place, but this happened to me about 10, 11 years ago, I think, and I was asleep, and it was about, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, which tells you everything. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning, that's when really spooky, weird stuff happens, especially around here. Whatever. I have cats, I have ghosts, I have all sorts of spooky things happen, okay? It is what it is. Anyway, so I'm asleep here in bed, and that's my window right there. My window is always open because obviously there's no access to it. So in the wintertime, I usually pretty much all year if I can, I leave the window open so I can get some fresh air and not have to turn on the AC and everything. So I was dead asleep, and then all of a sudden I woke up, and I was like startled awake because I don't know, you get that sensation when you're sleeping and all of a sudden something jars you awake and you're not sure, you're kind of disoriented because you're not sure what's going on, what's happening or anything like that. And I sat there and I was just looking around, and my cats were asleep at the end of the bed, and then I started hearing this sound. Now, it's a very unusual sound, and there were no cars outside, there was no planes flying overhead, there was nothing. It was 3 a.m., nobody was out. And it was dead silent on the street. There's usually something, but there was nothing. There was no sounds at all. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think to myself, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should get up, go to the bathroom or something. Maybe I should, what, forget it. I'm just going to roll over and try to go back to sleep, and everything's have to be up in a few hours. And then this really odd feeling of, I don't want to call it dread, but this sinking feeling came over my body. And it felt like something was pushing down on me, but it wasn't like a negative feeling. It was just something like, basically, just stay right there. And I was like, no, now I want to get up. Why are you making me stay down when I want to get up? And then I heard it. It sounded like boots marching. If you've ever seen like Civil War reenactments or any of that type of stuff, you know what the sound of boots on the ground sound like, especially multiple ones marching in formation. So I got up and I happened to look out my window, and I go and I peek out and I look, and I was like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Because this can't be, what? There was an army. It was probably, I don't know, it looked to be about 15 to 20 figures marching down the street, and you could hear the boots marching, going all the way down the street. And I could hear it on the asphalt. And I thought, well, that's weird, because this is Dallas. This is Carrollton in Dallas. There was no military occupation of any kind during the Civil War, any of the wars. There was never any of this. There's no army bases nearby. None of that. There should be none. Nothing having to do with any kind of military, any occupation. And I couldn't really see, but their clothing looked kind of Civil War era, but it just didn't make any sense to my brain, because I was like, logically, this can't be happening, because nothing Civil War related happened around here. There was nothing. There were no skirmishes, nothing. And then I sit there, and then all of a sudden I felt that same pushing push me back. And then I heard, don't look. And I'm like, excuse me? So I was like, but I want to look, this is weird. And then all of a sudden one of the figures stopped, and then its head turned towards me, and I went back behind the curtain so you couldn't see me, and it looked up at my window. And its face was like this, I don't know, this weird black skeletal type thing. And it just kind of stared, and its eyes just were empty sockets. And this is in the middle of the night, so I shouldn't have been able to see any of this. There were no, our street lights were not that good. And then they kept going, and then they were gone. And this was in less than 15 seconds of happening. It was 15, 20 seconds. And I thought, did I just see an army of the dead walking down the street? What the hell? And I never saw it again, never heard the boots again, never. in for the entire time I've lived here, I've never heard any of it again. So I thought, that's odd. That's very strange. But again, Army of the Dead was walking down the street 3 a.m. Don't know why, but there you go. Enjoy my spooky story time, because I can talk like a person. Y'all have an awesome day.